NASA warned about moon wobble to bring a surge of severe flooding in 2030s. Lunar cycles will cause an increase in floods across U.S. coastal cities in the middle of the next decade. The moon orbits, which affects the Earth's tides, has a natural wobble every 18.6 years that causes extremely high and low tides. In a new study published by Nature Climate Change, NASA's Sea Level Change Science team calculated that the next wobble in the mid-2030s will amplify rising sea levels caused by climate change. Rising sea levels is one of the many consequences of climate change. Global warming has resulted in a steep rise in global temperature within the last couple of centuries, weakening the ice sheets and glaciers in Antarctica and its surrounding regions. When ice begins to melt and break away from those frozen formations, they displace a volume of water that matches their own and therefore contribute to rising sea levels. Almost all of U.S. mainland coastlines as well as Hawaii and Guam are likely to see high tide flood numbers surge as they come under pressure from the higher seas. But northern coastlines including Alaska will be spared for another decade or longer because these land areas are rising due to long-term geological process. NASA said the study is the first to take into account all known oceanic and astronomical causes for floods. High tide floods, also known as nuisance floods or sunny day floods, occur not because of storm surge from extreme weather or excessive precipitation, but instead when the tide rises into populated areas. The floods can overwhelm storm drains, close roads, and compromise infrastructure over time, according to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. NASA Administrator Bill Nelson said low-lying areas near sea level are increasingly at risk and suffering due to the increased flooding, and it will only get worse. If you can see, there is a collision of Earth and Theia planet. Theia is a hypothesized ancient planet in the early solar system that, according to the giant impact hypothesis, collided with the early Earth around 4.5 billion years ago, with the sum of the resulting ejected debris gathering to form the Moon. In addition to explaining Earth's large satellite, the Theia hypothesis can also explain why Earth's core is larger than would be expected for a body its size. Theia's core and mantle mix with Earth's core and mantle. According to one version of hypothesis, Theia was an Earth Trojan about the size of Mars, with a diameter of about 6,102 km or 3,792 miles. Additional evidence published in 2019 suggested that Theia might have formed in the outer solar system rather than the inner solar system, and that much Earth's water originated on Theia. Liquid mirror telescope made with a reflective liquid. The most common liquid used is mercury, but other liquids will work as well. Example, low melting alloys of calcium. The liquid and its container are rotated at a constant speed around the vertical axis, which causes the surface of the liquid to assume a paraboloidal shape. So, what would happen if all ice melted? If all the ice on Earth melted overnight, the planet would be sent into chaos. There would be mass flooding from sea levels rising, severe weather changes, deadly chemical releases, and mass greenhouse gases that would leak into the atmosphere. Coastal cities like New York, Shanghai, and London would drown in the apocalyptic mass flood, forcing up to 40% of the world population out of their homes. While all this chaos ensures above ground, something equally sinister is happening below. All that rising salt water will infiltrate groundwater reserves farther inland, forcing its way into nearby freshwater aquifers. If all the ice covering Antarctica, Greenland, and in mountain glaciers around the world were to melt, sea level would rise about 70 meters, 230 feet. The ocean would cover all the coastal cities and land area would shrink significantly. Ice actually flows down valleys like rivers of water. 99% of all freshwater ice on Earth is sitting on top of Greenland and Antarctica, and each year, a little more of it melts into the ocean. And normally, it would take hundreds to thousands of years for it all to melt away. But what if something happened that caused a massive global melt overnight? On top of that, the ice on Greenland and Antarctica is made of fresh water, so when it melts, that about 69% of the world freshwater supply that's going straight into the oceans. This will wreak havoc on our oceans, current and weather patterns. Example, Gulf Stream. It's a strong ocean current that brings warm air to northern Europe and release on dense salty water from the Arctic is in order to function, but a flood of fresh water would dilute the current and could weaken or even stop it altogether. Without that warm air, temperatures in northern Europe would plummet and that could spawn a mini ice age, according to some experts. The rest of that 1% is hanging out underground, mostly in the Arctic tundra, as something called permafrost. Permafrost is organic matter that's been frozen in the ground for 2+ years. Now, one of the most immediate problems with thawing permafrost would be mercury poisonings. That's right. There are an estimated 15 million gallons of mercury stored up in the Arctic permafrost. That's almost equal to the amount of mercury everywhere else on Earth. On top of that, the organic matter in permafrost is a tasty meal for microorganisms. After they digest it all, they brought out two of the most potent greenhouse gases out there, carbon dioxide and methane. Scientists estimated this could be double the current levels of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere and potentially cause global temperatures to rise by 3.5 degrees Celsius compared today. That might not sound like much, but say goodbye to that mini European ice age and even rivers and lakes around the world. They evaporated from the higher temperatures and caused mass droughts and desert-like climate, and all the extra water vapor in the atmosphere would fuel more frequent and stronger storms, floods, and hurricanes. So all of that newly established coastline on the eastern US would be one of the last place would you want to live. High tide floods are less dramatic and involve less water than hurricane storm surges, so they are often seen as a less pressing problem. But if it floods 10 or 15 times a month, a business can't keep operating with its parking lot underwater. People lose their jobs because they can't get to work. Shipping seas will become a public health issue. The floods will also occur in clusters which could last a month or longer at a time depending on the position of the moon, sun, and earth. As the moon and earth line up with each other and the sun in specific ways, some city dwellers could see flooding every day or two. Ben Hamilton, who leads the NASA Sea Levels Change team, said the study is vital for coastal urban planners who may tend to focus on preparing for extreme weather events over chronic flooding. From a planning perspective, it's important to know when we'll see an increase. Understanding that all your events are clustered in a particular month, or you might have more severe flooding in the second half of a year than the first. That's useful information. The moon is currently in the tide amplifying part of its 18.6-year wobble, but most U.S. coastlines are yet to see enough sea level rise to notice the flooding effects. And by the mid-2030s, the next time the wobble enters its tide amplifying phase, global sea levels will have had another decade to rise due to climate change. The study projected the result out to 2080 by mapping NOAA widely used sea level rise scenarios and flooding thresholds. The number of the times those thresholds have been exceeded annually, astronomical cycles, and statistical representations of other processes such as El Niño events that are known to affect tides. According to the study, the most pronounced effects of this combination will be seen during the mid-2030s and into the 2040s, when the lunar cycle shifts again. However, some of the impact are already being felt. It's already occurring now and will likely continue to worsen as time goes on. From May 2020 to April 2021, some cities along the Southeast Atlantic and Gulf Coast have either set or tied records for the amount of high tide flooding, with the Corpus Christi and Galveston in Texas and Bay St. Louis waveland mess experiencing more than 20 days of flooding, according to NOAA. Ben Hamilton said, while the predictions appear grim, with the researchers saying not much can be done to change their estimates for the next few years, there are some measures that can be taken. The goal needs to be try to limit global warming and keep the sea level rise that we see as low level as possible. For instance, by reducing our emissions in order to reduce some of these impacts. So there are these bigger global decisions that play a very important role here. But scientists estimate that if we don't take action and global temperatures increase by just 1 degree Celsius, the effects of climate change we already see today will be irreversible. So yes, it could be worse, and it will be if we're not careful. Thank you for watching, and please subscribe to my channel, and don't forget to hit the bell button so that every time I upload my new video, you will notified. Thank you.